Hey guys, so if you were absent either Friday, May 10th or today, Monday, May 13th, you're probably really confused about all the stuff being posted about poetry right now. So this video is just to try to clear up some of that confusion. Um, I'm going to start by sharing my screen and I'm going to go over the things that we did on Friday first, and then I will move into what we covered today in class. If you need to skip ahead to the Friday content, I will leave that timestamp in the Google Classroom announcement from today, Monday, May 13th. Go ahead and skip ahead in the video if that's what you need to do. Okay, so Friday, we started by talking about something called soapstone. So what students did on Google Classroom posted on May 10th, there was something called Soapstone Notes and Assignment. If you open this up, you should have had one document shared with you that you were filling out. When you open up this document, you're going to see that one of your bullet points was always left blank. But I'm going to go over these notes with you and you can type them in if you need to, or you can get them copied down from a friend during class when you return. So Soapstone, real fast. It's an acronym. Each letter stands for something in an acronym. So the first S stands for speaker. This is the voice that tells the story. The author and the speaker are not always the same person. Sometimes the author will create a character to tell the poem from, but sometimes the author, we can just simply infer that they are the speaker of their own poem. Sometimes authors write nonfiction poems about their lives. In this case, the author is the speaker and a character, but we can kind of consider them the same person. But if there's like some type of autobiography or like some type of poem written about their own life, they're both. Okay, so O is occasion. Occasion is the time and place of the piece, the context that encouraged the writing to happen. So writing typically doesn't occur for just no reason at all. There's usually some larger occasion or some big idea swirling around in the mix. So some examples of this, like if you have a very political poem, what you can look at is the time period and what people might have been arguing about during that time. And that could have been the occasion that led to the inspiration of writing. But some pieces are a little bit more personal or to like just about our lives. And in that case, you can't necessarily prove that there was an occasion, but you can kind of still infer one based on what is being written. So for example, a lot of poetry can be about like heartbreak or loss. So if someone's writing about heartbreak, we can kind of assume that they've been through heartbreak to have been able to experience this inspiration for their poem. So we can assume that the occasion was the author was heartbroken and now they have this poem because of it. A stands for audience. This is a group of readers to whom the piece is directed. So the audience might be one person, it could be a small group, or it could be a large group. It also may be to certain people. The example I like to use right now, just based on our own pop culture, a lot of students seem to know about Kendrick Lamar and Drake sending each other diss tracks back and forth. And so we asked students on Friday, who was the audience of those diss tracks? And students at first, they were like, us, we're the audience, we can hear it, we can stream it on Spotify. But then after thinking about it a little bit further, we're not the ones being dissed or trash talked in these songs. So we're not the intended audience. The audience of Drake and Kendrick's rapper beef is each other. They're directing their songs to each other. So even though we can hear it and even though we can stream it and we're still listening to it, we're not the audience. Their audience is each other. So be really, really careful when you think about audience. My best advice when you're looking at audience is to think about who needs to hear this poem? Who is this advice for? P stands for purpose. Purpose is the reason behind the text, or as I like to call it, the theme. So the theme is going to be stated in a complete sentence. We've gone over theme in the past a little bit with Percy Jackson. We said the theme of Percy Jackson was you can do hard things because or you can do hard things and be successful, because there was this little boy who was dyslexic and ADHD, and he ultimately saved the world from the Greek gods and their feud, right? So even though the odds were stacked against him, he still saved the world. So the theme was you can do hard things and be successful. So what life lesson are you getting from your poem? What do you think the author wants you to know? What does the speaker want the audience to think as a result of this text? What is the moral of the story, the lesson behind the story? That's going to be your theme. S is subject. Subject is the general topic, content, and ideas that are contained in the text. So you should be able to state the subject in a word or a phrase or a few lines. It should be like a broad overview of things. If you've ever been in a reading conference with me, you know that I end my reading conferences with the question, if you could sum up this book in one word or one sentence, what would you say about it? And when I'm talking about subject, I'm talking about you summing up this poem in one word, one phrase, something quick. What can you say to sum up this whole poem? Finally, tone. Tone is the attitude of the author. So how is the author feeling while writing this? So this can be spoken through like their attitude. It could be like their tone of voice, but sometimes, I mean, with poetry, we kind of are reading it, so we can't necessarily get a tone of voice. So that makes it a little bit trickier. How we can determine poem when we're reading it is through word choice, syntax, and imagery. I'm going to come back to word choice. I want to start with syntax. So sometimes poems are going to be short and choppy. Like you'll have like a few words on each line and they'll go back to back to back to back like that. Maybe that will tell you something about their tone. Sometimes poems are long and drawn out. You have sentences upon sentences upon sentences in each of your individual sections of the poem. So maybe that could tell you something about the tone. Imagery would be like vivid descriptions that appeal to your senses. So we talked a little bit about imagery with figurative language way back when with Percy Jackson. But imagery could also be things like, I don't know, for an example, you could say it was a dark and stormy night. That dark and stormy night would give you that cold, scary, dark feeling. Just with that one line. Let's go back to word choice. So some examples of like positive, negative, and just like random miscellaneous tone words could be things like positive could be amused, confident, hopeful. Negative could be like belligerent, condescending, desperate, hateful. And then miscellaneous is just like things that are just kind of there. So like factual, intimate, objective, reflective. So there's a number of different tones that we could use in different words that could point us in those directions. So while I was going over this on Friday, students were simply filling in notes with me. And then at the end here with this positive, negative, miscellaneous, I just had students write down 3 examples of each for themselves so that they'd have quick access to it. I do strongly recommend that you get these notes completed and ready to go. We're going to have a project at the end of the week that involves these notes, and you're going to want them handy. So make sure that you have your notes, make sure you've done them, have them ready to go. So then what we did after we took our notes is we did a 7 habits poem together, and each class kind of got to pick their own. I'm just going to go ahead and pick one for you today. So 7 habits poems, they are all listed in Google Classroom under 7 habits poetry. So if you open this up, it's full of different poetry. I'm just going to go with the first one I see here, Good Timber. So Good Timber, we're going to use this in our next example too. So we'll just keep using it and keep annotating it. But what I want to do is I want to read it once and then I want to read it again. And I know that that sounds really dumb and repetitive, especially because you're watching a video right now, but bear with me. It'll make more sense if you read it twice because poetry goes so fast. It's easy to be like, what the heck did I just read? So let's read it together. We're going to do it twice. I know it sounds dumb. Bear with me. Good Timber. For the tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, but stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain, never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further the sky, the greater the length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where thickest lies the forest growth, we find patriarchs of both, and they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches show the scars. Of many winds and much of strife, this is a common law of life. I know it sounds dumb. Read it with me one more time. The tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, but stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain, never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further the sky, the greater the length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where thickest lies the forest growth, we find the patriarchs of both, and they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches show the scars of many winds and much of strife. This is a common law of life. Okay, so we read it twice. We're going to try to answer the soapstone questions at the bottom of our worksheet. Okay, so this is the same worksheet that we were just taking notes on. Poem 1, we're going to start by just saying good timber. Our speaker, we don't have a character here, right? So no character. We must be dealing with the author. So our author is our speaker. You can say his name, you can say author, it doesn't matter to me. Occasion. Why would someone want to write this poem? It's all about, I mean, there's a tree that never had to fight for rain, but it died a scrubby thing. So it didn't have to work that hard to get rain, but it just died kind of little. And then there was a man who never had to fight for much soil. And so he never had to like win his share or anything like that. He kind of was just given, he handed things to him in life. So he never became a manly man. He lived and died as he began. Then we go back to dealing with trees. So good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. So the more pushback those trees got, the bigger they grew. And then where the thickest lies the forest growth, we find the patriarchs of both, and they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches show the scars of many winds and much of strifes. This is a common law of life. So we're comparing trees to men in the sense that trees go through hard weather on a regular basis tend to grow bigger and stronger because they learn how to deal with it. And trees that don't go through hard weather on a regular basis kind of live and die scrubby things. Then we have these men who, the men who are just kind of handed things in life, they live and die as they begin. The men who are not handed things in life but have to work for everything they get, they grow stronger and stronger and stronger, just like the trees that grow stronger and stronger and stronger if the weather's kind of pushing back on them. So occasion for this, we're not talking about trees and growing a garden or anything like that. We're mostly talking about the harder life is on you, the more lessons you learn. So occasion, maybe this author went through hard times and grew because of it. So we could say went through hard times and grew because of it. And what we did in class is we kind of answered these together and kind of, question and answered our way through it. But it's just me talking to a video, so we're gonna make this work. Audience, who was this intended for? Who do you think would need to hear this? I think someone who probably hasn't been through a lot of struggle might need to hear this. And I'm saying that because someone who might not have been through a lot of struggle, or someone who is going through a lot of struggle might need to hear this because they're the ones who are kind of like the trees. Like, yes, the weather is pushing back on them. Hard times are happening in their life, but it's going to grow stronger, and they're going to grow stronger because of it, and they're going to be motivated because of it. So purpose. This is the moral of the story. What lesson can we learn? To grow strong, you have to go through hardships. Subject. One word to define the whole thing. My one word I would use is growth, because it's about growth in life. It's about growth in the trees. It's a little bit of both. Tone. So I like to start with positive, negative, or neutral. I could see this a little bit as positive and a little bit as neutral, just because of like all the growth. And then we kind of try to pick something that's a little bit more head on based on positive, negative, or neutral. I would say that this is inspiring. So it's meant to, the tone is inspiring. It's inspiring you to go through hardships, even though you might be struggling a lot, get through the hardships so that you can grow. So 3 words that prove the tone, I just come back in here and I would say words like gain, grow, stronger, greater, strength, all kinds of different words that I could use for that last one. So this was our first little bit. Now that we've done that together, what I will have you do is I will have you finish up part 2 on your own. So what we did today, in class, this is as far as we got on Friday. We did our notes together. We did our first poem together. This is what we did on Monday is we did this, first little bit or our second poem together, or not together, second poem in groups. I'm so sorry. So today, Monday, we did poem 2. We came in here to 7 Habits Poetry with our groups. Again, this is in Google Classroom. And we just did a poem that we did not analyze on Friday. So whatever your class analyzed together, you got to do something else. Recommendation wise, I would lean away from doing so. I know it's really short and it seems like it's going to be easy because it's short, but that's actually what makes it really hard to do this. I would pick one of the other ones, especially if you don't have your group with you. But if you want to try the challenge and go for so, you're more than welcome to. But pick another one that we did not do together. I would also not pick Good Timber if you were absent, just because I just finished that one. But pick one that you have not done, go through the soapstone process, and then try to get this turned in. If you have questions, email me. I'm happy to help you. You do have an extended time because you've been absent. So don't panic about that. I am grading them tonight. They might go into the grade book. And if they do, don't worry about that 0. You can get it made up. Okay, so that's where we started on Monday. We finished up soapstone stuff, and then we moved into some new structure stuff. So after students filled out their soapstone for poem 2, we learned some new terms. So today we went over structure. We talked about stanzas, rhymes, and syllables. So to start us off, I hope my thing's not in the way. Okay. To start us off, we went with stanzas. So stanzas are sections of a poem that are separated from each other through spacing. They divide and organize the poem, and they're basically like the paragraphs of poetry. So this first one, I simply showed students a poem and was like, how many stanzas are there? How many stanzas? 4. We can easily count them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And we just can tell based on how our paragraphs are structured. Okay. Then we went into rhyme schemes. So this is the ordered rhyme at the end of each line of poetry. And how we represent rhyme schemes is through A's, B's, C's, and D's. Each time we get to a new stanza, we repeat A's, B's, C's, and D's. We don't move on to E, F, G, H. We go back to A, B, C, D all the way through each stanza. Okay, so help me out with this first one. The tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light. Fight and light, there are last words at the very end there. So we have A's. But stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain. Okay, plain and rain, they rhyme, but they don't rhyme with fight or light, so we got B's. Never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. Okay, king and thing, they rhyme. They're kind of a slant rhyme. They're not an exact rhyme, but they do rhyme. So, but they don't rhyme with the plain or in the rain. They don't rhyme with fight and light, so they're going to be C. And we got AA, BB, CC. That's the way our poem is set up. It just keeps rhyming back to back like that. Okay, the man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. We got toil and soil, we got share and air, we got man and began. AA, BB, CC. And it just keeps repeating like that all the way through the poem. If you keep going with the last 2 stanzas, you're going to see the exact same trend. So our rhyme scheme is AA, BB, CC. Oh, and notice again on stanza 2, how I didn't go into D. I got a new stanza, I go back to A. All right, last one. We went over syllables today. Syllable is a single unit of speech. I say it's separated by vowels, and I use that term loosely because this isn't always going to work out that way. Typically, if you have a vowel and a consonant back to back, you have a syllable. But if you have a vowel and a vowel back to back, you still just have 1 syllable. It's not 2 syllables because there's 2 vowels. Because they're together, there's something called a vowel team. They're going to be 1 syllable. You might have been clapping out syllables in elementary school. So what that would have looked like is syllable. You would have been like clapping them as you were speaking with your teacher. So that's kind of what we tried today. So we're going to try this together. All right. the tree that never had to fight. 8. For sun and sky and air and light. 8 again. But stood out in the open plain. 8. And always got its share of rain. 8. Never became a forest king. 8. But lived and died a scrubby thing. 8. So they're 8 all the way through. So this can't be a coincidence. The author clearly did this on purpose. And that's to emphasize like a certain rhythm to the poem. So it's always going to read like da 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 all the way through its 8 syllables. So when you're dealing with syllables and a syllable pattern, my recommendation to you is to make sure that you check 2 stanzas before you say that there's no syllable pattern here. Because sometimes what you might find is like you have like a weird syllable pattern in the first stanza, but then you have that same weird syllable pattern in the second stanza. So what that might be is like maybe line 1 has 9 syllables, line 2 has 9 syllables, line 3 has 13 syllables, and line 4 has 12 syllables. And you're like, okay, there's no syllable pattern here, except when you go to stanza 2. Line 1 has 9, line 2 has 9, line 3 has 13, and line 4 has 12 again. Then you do have a syllable pattern. It just wasn't near as obvious as this one where it's perfectly 8 every single time. Okay, so then our final assignment, what we did today in class, and most students were able to get this done pretty quickly. This is in Google Classroom. It's a Google form. Got posted this morning. It's called Stanza Rhyme Scheme Syllables Form. If you open this up, it's going to ask you some questions about syllables, rhyme scheme, and all that stuff that we just covered. So, what you're going to do is you are going to pick 2 7 Habits poems to go through this process with. You're going to tell me what they are. It can't be Good Timber again because we just did that one together. So pick what your 2 are, select their title. How many stanzas are in your first 7 Habits poem? Give me a number. What is the rhyme scheme of your 7 Habits poem? There's a chance you don't have one. If your poem doesn't rhyme, you don't have a rhyme scheme. So don't worry about it. If the answer is none, say none. If you do have a rhyme scheme, tell me what it is. A, B, A, B, A, A, B, B, C, C. It can be a number of things and it might seem a little bit weird. Go ahead and try it out. If you have some questions, let me know. And then finally, was there a pattern with syllables in your 7 Habits poem? If yes, how many syllables were in each line? So this answers are going to look like maybe like 9, 9, 13, 12. Then that's totally fine. There's also a chance that you have no syllable pattern in your poem, and that's fine as well. You just say there was none, and that's fine. Then you'll do this exact same process for the second part of the form. And that is everything you would have missed on Friday and Monday. So we can be kind of caught up now. I'm hoping that that helps. You do have extended time. You've been gone. So don't panic. If some of this isn't making sense and you need to wait till you can get some questions answered, come see me. I'm happy to help you through this process and get you caught up as soon as possible. Feel free to shoot me an email, mman1@GoddardUSD. And yeah, we'll get all this poetry stuff figured out together. Thank you guys. We'll see you soon.